you so much for joining us. Good morning to you all. I'm going to hand over to Gerwin Williams very shortly, who is the Apprenticeship Manager, and he's going to give you some information on Horizon and the apprenticeships that are open at the moment. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I will hand over to Gerwin to you now to take you through the presentation. What you can do is chat any questions as you're listening into the chat box, and we'll make sure they get answered as we go through. So feel free to type them in, and any problems as we go along, just let us know. Thank you, Gerwin. I shall hand over to you.
Well, good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can see the presentation up on your screens. My name is Gerwin Williams and I'm the Apprenticeship Manager for Horizon. So what we're going to do is go through a few details about what we're planning to do as an organisation and what our future entails in relation to employment prospects for anybody wishing to join the nuclear industry. With me today I have a couple of our current apprentices, Nia and Sophie, so if you have any questions that you would like to ask anybody who's taking part in our current programme, then you can always ask a few questions of them, and I'm sure they'll give you nice honest answers about how things are going for them. Okay, so I've made up a little presentation. Okay, so I'll split it into three sort of rough areas. I'll tell you a little bit about the project and what we plan to do. Then I'll talk a little bit about apprenticeships and what we sort of offer, and then we'll go on to the application process and what to expect if you decide that you'd like to have a go at getting opportunity with Horizon. Horizon is a company that's planning to build a nuclear power plant on Anglesey. There's a picture of what we are proposing to do up on the screen there. You should see in the top right hand corner the current Wilver power station, which has gone through into decommissioning, and then there's a big grey building next to it, which is the distribution hub for the power that's generated from the current station. And the grey area you can see in the middle of the screen is what we are proposing to build. Okay, so you should see in the middle there are two groups of buildings, a couple of buildings with domes on the top, and then a couple of square buildings next to those. So those are the reactor buildings and the generation buildings. The other buildings around the site are things like the visitor centre, the administration block. We have a lot of purification and support facilities to run the plant safely and make sure that everything is running correctly. You'll see it out on the top in the centre of the picture, some breakwaters. That's where we have our water inlet. And then on the far side of the current station, on the top on the right hand side, you should see some seawater being put back into the sea there, and that's where we're going to have our sort of cooling water discharge as well. Currently the site is a set of fields. We've done our geological surveys and our archaeological surveys, so we've dug about 2,500 trenches along the site to make sure there's nothing of any particular significance in there, so we can remove it beforehand. And there are currently a couple of small hills there that need to be moved and so on, so there's a lot of preparatory work that will go on before we start the build project. Okay, so any questions about the site, then make sure that you type those into the question mark there. Horizon is a company that's owned by Hitachi, so that's a Japanese company that builds reactors. So in effect, we are paying Hitachi to build our reactor for us. So you should be able to see there a cutaway of the reactor building and the generation building. So the building on the left-hand side houses the reactor. So Hitachi are responsible for developing and constructing that particular section of the plant. Then on the right-hand side, you should see the turbine hall and the generators. So in there, we have a company called General Electric that specialise in turbines and generators, and Hitachi and General Electric form a partnership to create these power stations. Okay, they're called advanced boiling water reactor stations. So we're going to have two of those on our particular site, and the generation that we have is going to be quite substantial in comparison to the old site that used to be there running a Magnox plant. Operational staff, once we are generating, will be about 850 people. You can see from the breakdown there that 75% of the people who work on site will be from a technical engineering type background, and then the remaining 25% will be the support for those particular functions at the top there, so things like finance, HR, health, physics, chemistry. And then we also have a training unit to make sure that everybody's up to speed with the latest technologies and everybody's got proof that they're able to do their work and so on, so a very important function there. So in essence, we're going to have 850 people on the plant. 75% of them are going to come from engineering technical background, so we're looking for over 600 people in those particular fields to be ready and trained and ready to run the station when we start operating in 2025. So there's quite a lot of work to do. So that's why we've started our technical apprenticeship so early, to make sure that we have enough people to run the plant safely and are all suitably qualified and suitably trained beforehand. Our expectation for the qualifications that people have when they join, we're expecting about 10% of our workforce to have degrees. So out of the 850, we expect about 85 people to have degree backgrounds. The rest of the staff on site will be coming through apprenticeship programs and then sort of progressing through high national certificates, high national diplomas. So there's a very large emphasis, a very strong emphasis on apprenticeships in relation to the nuclear industry. You find in general that throughout the country, only about sort of 15 to 16% of people who work in the industry have come through a degree background. The majority come through apprenticeships. Our chief executive, for instance, left school at 16, did an apprenticeship, and now he runs the company. My boss came through apprenticeships. He left at 17, went through an apprenticeship program. So in our particular section, there are relatively few people who have a degree. Most people have done apprenticeships and worked their way through the industry. The heavy reliance on apprenticeships is mainly due to the behaviours and attitudes that are expected within the nuclear industry, and it's really important for the industry that we get people into that mindset really early. That's why we found that apprenticeships are the very best way to do that. Some specialist areas require degrees, so for instance health physics and chemistries, reactor physics is quite a complex thing, so things of that nature will generally have people with sort of degree qualifications within them. Okay, so that gives you a general idea of why we're starting apprenticeships and why the nuclear industry finds it really important to emphasise that side of things. The project itself is one that's been going for a while. There are lots of things we have to do in order to get permission to build a nuclear power station, as you could imagine. We're now going through design assessments for the reactor itself. We're going through getting a site license to hold nuclear materials on site. So all of that sort of procedure is what we're working on currently. Next year we'll start the site preparation and clearance, which means that we'll be starting to move a lot of the buildings and structures that are on the site, so walls and stuff like that. And the final investment decision is expected to be in 2019. That means that we'll have completed all of the requirements for the site licenses and the permissions, and we'll also have all the finance in place, and at that point the project sort of collects everything together, and then we sort of move forward into the construction phase. These plants in the past have been built in about 46 months, something of that nature. So it's expected that the construction phase itself, when we start to pour the nuclear concrete, shouldn't take too long. And then commissioning will start in about 2023, something of that nature. And then the commercial operation will start in about 2025. Okay, so we have 2 reactors, and we're expecting the first one to be operational by sort of halfway through 2025. So we're now in 2017, so we've already started recruiting people to work on site on the plant when it's generating in 2025. Okay, so that's how seriously we need to take our sort of training program to make sure that everybody's up to speed and understands exactly what they're doing by that time. Okay, so some people will start to sort of learn how the plant works and so on at this particular point, ready for that 2025 start. Once the plant is up and running, it'll run for 60 years. Plants usually get extensions as they go along, so it might run for a bit more than that. We have people currently working on decommissioning. So decommissioning is expected to take about 12 to 15 years once we've finished. So this project overall is going to take about 100 years. So if you start off with us as an apprentice, there's every opportunity for you to continue working until you retire, whenever that may be, by the time you sort of get to retirement age. Okay, so it's a long process. It's a long project, and sort of being in at the start is really exciting. You can see how it develops and how it progresses, so it's really important that if you're interested in working in the nuclear industry, this is a really good project to be involved with. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of a background about what we sort of plan to do as a company. So any questions there?
Thank you. We've got a question from Ben. Very good question. How big is the new site compared to the previous one?
Well, you saw from the first sort of slide that I put up, the new site is a lot bigger because we're going to be generating about 3 times, 4 times as much energy as the previous site. And we also find that having plenty of space around the site helps us to sort of maintain and have plenty of space to make sure that we have any developments in the future. We've got plenty of space to sort of work into those as well. So the space required for the site is a lot larger than when the first site was created back in the 60s and 70s. So things have moved a lot by then, and the generation capacity that we have has increased a lot as well. Okay. So I move on to the next section. So perhaps some of you haven't come across an idea of what an apprenticeship is. So I'll put a few slides together just to explain what an apprenticeship is and what's involved. It's basically a way of being paid to learn. So once you start as an apprentice, you will be paid as a normal employee of the company. So if you're doing your GCSEs currently, if you start an apprenticeship with us, we probably do a level 2 to start with, and then we progress you on to a level 3. So that means that a level 2 will give you a basic understanding of engineering, and then level 3 will sort of develop your skills further. Nuclear industry is very key, as I said, in apprenticeship, so you can progress on to level 4, which is sort of first couple of years in a university, for instance. And beyond that, you can progress on to sort of a degree level apprenticeships as well in different fields. Other alternative ways of joining the company, you can do A levels, and you can go down the university sort of process to get a degree. So, you know, health physics and chemistry and so on, and then sort of start working for the company at that point. The major difference between the two is that obviously as an apprentice, you'd be paid if you start with us straight away. And if you go down degree route, then the income will start to come in once you finish your degree and you start with the company at that point. So there is kind of like a difference of maybe sort of 5, maybe 6 years, depending on the type of degree that you do, between when you start to get paid after you finish your learning process. Okay, so the major difference is you get paid at the start, and you're also linked to an employer. An apprenticeship framework, okay, so this is something you come across a lot if you're doing an apprenticeship. It's something that's created by an employer, and it directly relates to a specific job type. Okay, so it's basically just a bunch of qualifications and short courses that will help you to do a certain type of work once you start working. There'll be a knowledge qualification, which means that you'll sort of do that in college, so it'll be a theory type qualification that will help you understand the processes and the subjects that you're looking at. There'll be a practical type qualification where we sort of apply what we've learned in the classroom, so have a go at doing some practical things. And there'll also be some specific employer qualifications. So as a company, we get people to do courses that are related to the nuclear industry, so we might do things like human performance, we might do things like introduction to nuclear. We also have some other things to do with document management and security and things of that nature. So there are other things that we add into the qualifications as well. Our recruitment timescale, we've opened for applications on 6th of February and we close our applications on the 3rd of March, so I think there's another sort of couple of weeks to go. I think it's 2 weeks today that we close, so there's still opportunity to make an application. Applications are through the Horizon website, so if you go onto our website you should see that there's an application process. And it's the same application process that everybody comes to work for the company has to go through. So it's no different to when I made an application, it was exactly the same process. We'll hope to finish the interview and recruitment process before the GCSE start, so that we've got a clear sort of time for your GCSE exams if you're taking those this year as well. Our requirements are fairly similar to other companies in the industry. Over many years you find that there are certain skills that you need to start off and be successful in your apprenticeship. So we need 5 GCSEs at a minimum. Mathematics, science and English language are the ones that we concentrate most on, because these give us a good basic understanding to build your knowledge sort of further as you go into sort of level 3 and level 4 apprenticeships, and allows you to progress in the company. With our apprenticeship, as you saw at the start, we have a picture of what the plant is going to look like, but we don't actually have a plant at the moment, so we'll probably send you to work with other companies that are in the same sort of field as us during the apprenticeship, so that may be a time that you'll be away from North Wales from our base. You'll still be employed by us and we'll pay for everything in relation to your work placement, so you will be out of pocket if you have to go to somewhere else within the UK to work for a bit of time. Really important that you have a keen interest in the subject. You're going to be doing this for quite a while, so it's really important that you have an interest in what you pursue as a career. So when you apply for the apprenticeship, make sure that you understand what the content is and it's something that you'd like to do. Our apprenticeships are based at Coleg Menai, and we start off with a level 2 to start with, and then from there we'll finish that in about 12 months, and then we'll progress a little bit further down onto level 3, and within that level 3 qualification you'll have work placements to do your practical applications somewhere within the UK, and we expect to finish that in about 24 months. So that's a 2-year programme. The content in detail: performing engineering operations is a practical qualification. Sitting Guilds 2850 is a theory qualification, and we do specific Horizon nuclear courses. Then in year 3 we sort of split into sort of specific areas: mechanical, electrical, control instrumentation, electronics are the 4 main fields that we expect people to specialise in once they go into work. So first year a bit of everything, and then second and third year we sort of find out what you particularly enjoy and we try to concentrate more on those. After you finish employment as an apprentice, you move to be, I suppose, a normal employee of the company. The fields that we expect you to develop into are sort of engineering technicians, field operators and control room operators initially. Between when you finish your apprenticeship and when we start generation, we would expect you to continue to develop your skills. So we would ask you to develop specific skills in advanced boiling water reactor stations. That means that you may be placed with a boiling water reactor station operator for some time. We also may ask you to work at Hitachi as part of the supply chain, looking at the design and development of the plant itself. And we'd also expect you to sort of work towards level 4 apprenticeship, and also try to get some professional qualifications, and those be through the Engineering Council. So once you've finished your apprenticeship, it isn't a time when you sort of finish learning. It's where you sort of start to learn seriously about the work that you're doing and sort of applying it in the real world. And the nuclear industry is really keen on people carrying on to learn as they go through their career. So it's not a point where you finish, it's really a point where you sort of change the focus of your learning into the sort of the real world of work. Any questions on the apprenticeships there?
Okay, so feel free to chat any more questions that you might have on the apprenticeships themselves. We'll answer them as we go along, and just at the end of the webinar as well. We have had some questions that have been pre-sent to us, so just to give you a chance to type some of your own questions in at the moment, I shall send some of the questions over now. So in terms of the apprenticeship, what kind of salary does an apprentice earn?
Well, as an apprentice, we have a scale that sort of matches across to other companies in the industry. So in the first year, we're probably expected to start on about 12,500, and that will progress upwards as you go through the apprenticeship. And in the final year, you'll probably be on about 17,000 a year. Once you move across to work for the company after finishing your apprenticeship, we'd expect you to sort of start on about 20-ish thousand a year, somewhere in that region. So obviously that's a few years away and things may sort of move up. But in general, we expect that to be the sort of points where pay falls, as it were. Okay. So in effect, if you're starting with us in September, then that first year will start at about 12,500.
Lovely, fantastic opportunity. Okay, we're going to take some more questions a little bit later on in the webinar, so keep chatting them in as well and make sure they all get answered for you. And I shall hand back to Gavin again to go through the next section of his presentation.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now, in case you haven't come across making applications and going through the selection process, I'm going to explain a little bit about what we do in relation to selecting our apprentices. So that you're not surprised if you sort of make an application what you come through. So, it's really important that when you make an application is you know a little bit about the company, so do some research and so on and know what you're applying for beforehand. We have an online application process, so within that you would need to upload a CV and a covering letter and also add answers to the questions that we have on our online application form. From that, we would select a group for a phone interview, and then from that group, we would select a group for the assessment centre. Okay, so that's the process that we go through to select sort of our apprentices that start in September. With the online application, this is the first thing that we see in relation to your application, so it's really important that you make a good job of it. So try and make sure that you have all the information that we would need in order to make a sensible decision about whether to sort of move you on to the next stage or not. Try and make sure that you emphasize experiences that you've got in addition to just listing your qualifications. Yeah, remember, this is your opportunity to sell yourself, so it's really important that you make a good job of it, because this is the first stage of the selection process, and in order to get through to a situation where you're able to have interviews, you need to make sure that you make a good job of this one. So work experiences are really important. Situations where you worked as a team and a group are really important to try and bring forward on there. Phone interview is an important part of the process. This is the next stage, and if you're not successful on this particular stage, you won't get through to the face-to-face interviews. So it's really important that you prepare yourself beforehand for the phone interview. Try and think about questions you might want to ask, what experiences you think we might ask you on the interview, and try and make sure that you know something about the company and the industry and so on as well, to make sure that we understand you know what you're getting into and you've got a good reason for making an application. If you go through to the final stage, which is our assessment centre, we usually run these over a couple of days, and these are scheduled to be just after the Easter holidays this year. There are basically three sections to that where we sort of assess your suitability for group work, and whether the GCSE results that you put forward sort of match our expectations, and also whether you're able to answer questions in an interview to make sure that we can sort of check facts and so on as we go through that. So important to be on time and look the part, obviously. So if you're there at the assessment centre for 9 o'clock in the morning, try and get there beforehand to make sure that you've got some time to sort of settle down and stuff before you start off. In your group activity, We usually sort of run these to make sure that people can work in groups. You'll find within the industry that a lot of the work that's carried out is done as a group. So it's really important that we have people that are able to sort of communicate and listen and are aware of what other people are doing as work progresses. So communication is a really important part of that. We'll do a little online test to make sure that the GCSE results you put forward are similar to the expectations if we do a little test. So these will cover the general things that we look for within our specific requirements, so a little bit of science, a little bit of maths, language and reasoning, to see how they fare in comparison to the rest of the group that have come through as well. And with the interview, we won't ask anything different to what a lot of other companies will ask. You know, why do you want this job? What do you know about us? With an interview, there's usually, you'll find a set limit for the process to take place. So if an interview takes 25 minutes, you may sit there for 25 minutes being asked question after question. Or alternatively, if you bring something with you that you can talk about, then that allows you to talk about something you're familiar with and confident with. And that may make you a little bit more relaxed about the process as well. Things we look for is basically, so looking back at the presentation, you know, communications are really important within the industry, working as a team. Obviously, you're going to be working in the technical areas, so scientific and mathematical skills are really important. And obviously, you're going to be doing this every day for a long time, so having an interest is really important so that you enjoy your work when you start working with a company on the site. And so those are the sort of things that we look for within the process of interviewing. If you're not familiar with what an online test might look like, I've put together some examples, quite simple, straightforward things. So a shape test, trying to work out the sequence. So you know, on that one, you'd expect a blank circle to come up next. On that one, slightly more complex. So you know, you can see there's a pattern of blank shapes and filled-in shapes. So you'd expect the blank shape for the first one. And they're all big shapes, so you probably expect that one to come up in that first box. That one, a set of shapes, and they rotate as they go. So within that one, you'll find that there's a particular shape that comes up on there that matches the requirements, and also, on that one, you'll find that the sequence requires a large circular object with a little corner taken out. And that one there should fit. Okay, so you generally find that sort of shape test rules, something like that. Mechanical tests, fairly similar, trying to work out what's going to happen next. So you know, if you put the lever, what's going to happen. So we've got to move in direction B. Which one is the easiest to move? Okay, so the weight is closer to the pivot in A, so you expect A to be easy to move. Which way is the gear on the left going to turn? So that should turn in direction A. And then which way the lever is going to go on that one. So if you lift the lever up there, you should expect that lever on the opposite side to move in direction B. Okay, so those are just simple examples. But if you do a search on the internet, you'll probably find lots of other examples to look at as well, to give you a spread of different things to look at if you get through to the final stage. Okay, so that gives you a brief idea of what our recruitment process is like.
Thank you very much, Gerwin. That's really interesting and some really good insight into what the interview involves, and a few tips for you there as well. It might be a good opportunity now to introduce apprentices to you. It's your opportunity now to talk to two actual real apprentices and chat any questions to them that you might have. Feel free to put them into the chat box and we'll make sure that they all get answered. If there are any questions that you think of after the webinar, please do send them through to us, and I know that Gerwin and the girls too will make sure that we get the answers to those sent over to you. So Gerwin, if you would like to introduce our apprentices.
Yeah, so this is Nia and Sophie. So they've been with us since September, and they're currently doing the first year of the apprenticeship with us. So they've had a little bit of experience of what the apprenticeship is like. So if you want to ask some questions about sort of what it's like to be an apprentice and so on, then feel free to do so.
Okay. I have a question actually. Mia and Sophie, did you have any work examples that before going to your interview for Horizon? Were there any examples of work that you could suggest might be useful?
I didn't take any in, but I know Mia, you could put in your D&T work. Yeah. That she did.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
Because you have to use different software while being in college, such as like SolidWorks and stuff, which Mia already had experience about before joining. So.
Okay, great. So there's probably a lot of examples that students could think of that they're doing already, which would be really handy to bring up into an interview as well. And what made you go for a Horizon Apprenticeship?
Just being close to home and being able to do what I wanted to do without having to go millions of miles away, really.
Lovely.
And for me, it was more with other apprenticeships, it's you look at a different type of engineering. But with Horizon, the first year you get to look at everything really. So you don't have to choose straight away what you want to do. And in the second and third year, more specific then. So that what
interests you the most. Yeah, you get to decide.
Yeah, you're obviously really enjoying it. Yeah, lovely. And what kind of GCSEs did you take before?
I did textiles, maths, music, separate science, and like Welsh and English and maths and that. I've done my AS as well in college.
Ah, okay, lovely.
And I did maths, music and D&T. And it's D&T that helped me the most because like paperwork I've already done, I had like kind of, it's better that you've done paperwork and stuff and filling them out because you've got experience and because a lot of people, you won't know how to fill in things and it helps like that.
Brilliant. Okay. Would you like to take a few more questions now?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. What about progression from your apprenticeship afterwards? Is there any progression within the company once the apprenticeship is finished?
Well, the company is quite a young company. We work within the safety and generation section of the company, and currently there are, I think, 37 of us in that particular section. And by the time we come to generation, we need to have grown that particular section up to 850 to run the company. So once you finish your apprenticeship and move across, you'll find that progression is a really important part of what we do. Say the example of our chief executive, he did an apprenticeship and he's progressed to run several nuclear sites throughout the world, and now he's running this company as a new utility. So the opportunity for progression within the nuclear industry from an apprenticeship is really very good. And something that we try to encourage.
Fantastic. Okay. Right, so maybe girls, you could tell us a little bit about the work hours that you do as well.
So we're in Coleg Menai in Bangor, 9 till 5:30 Monday to Thursday, and then it's 9 till 4 o'clock on Friday.
Okay.
Early finish on Fridays.
Happy days. Okay. And you mentioned also that there's the possibility of working in other areas of the UK. So whereabouts might that be?
What we're trying to do is find locations that will match our sort of skills requirements. So you may well end up working within the supply chain. So that would be companies that sort of design and manufacture components and so on to go on to the plant itself. Or you may end up sort of working with companies that do a similar type of work in generation of electricity. So that means that within the UK you might end up sort of anywhere to some extent, because it's such a spread out kind of industry. But obviously if you're employed by the company, we pay for your accommodation, your travelling, sort of meals that you have, that you would normally have at home while you're away on location. Okay. We pay for you to come back, obviously, now and again to site to have a look at what's going on and keep in touch with everybody. You'd have a mentor specifically allocated to you on your work placements, so someone local who will look after you while you were there. And you would also have someone like me coming around to see how things are going on and monitoring what you're doing as well, making sure everything's okay.
Great, lovely. So me and Sophie, we have other questions coming in as well. What would you say that you really enjoy about your apprenticeship, you know, on a daily basis? What is it that you like?
Well, in the mornings we really do like more theory and paperwork and things like that. The afternoons are my favourite when you get to do like practical work.
Practical.
Yeah, we enjoy electronic stuff. Electrical.
Oh, fantastic.
Making, like we made a dice, like an electronic dice. That was fun.
Oh,
Like,
great.
different stuff like that. We made we're designing a motor now, how to stop and start a motor. So
Brilliant. It sounds really interesting. Good fun as well. It's really nice to see a couple of female apprentices as well as a representation from Horizon, so there's opportunities there for girls and boys as well.
Yeah.
So would you say that you find that there's quite a lot of girls that have taken up the apprenticeships as well
It's
as
just
boys?
both of us at the moment.
Yeah,
We'd like to see more girls in the way.
yeah.
fantastic. So the opportunity is there if you would like it as well. Great stuff. Okay, so we're going to take, if you want any more questions asking, please chat them into the chat box at the moment. We have a few more minutes before we need to finish the Horizon webinar, so it's your chance now to type in any more questions that you would like answered. And as I said before, we can always answer them later on if you don't think of any at the moment. You can see in front of you now links to the Horizon website as well. So bear that in mind if you go and have a look after a webinar and look through the apprenticeship details there. We will also send you copies of the slides so that you can view those, and they'll be available to yourselves in your school as well. And as we mentioned, the closing date for the apprenticeships, could you remind me, please?
Yeah, the apprenticeship is currently open, and we're going to close the apprenticeship application process on the 3rd of March, which is 2 weeks today, I think, on a Friday. You can see on the screen there the website address for Horizon Apprenticeship, and then within there you'll find the application process. Horizon is owned by Hitachi, so we use the Hitachi recruitment process. So when you sort of go through the links, you'll find that you'll end up in a different website to Horizon's website, but that's expected because of the sort of parent company that we use for a lot of our functions within the company as well.
Okay, thank you. Right, we're just coming towards the end of the webinar now. What I'm going to do now is just say a big thank you to Gavin and Mia and also Sophie for giving us this opportunity today and to bring more information to all your schools about the apprenticeships and the kind of skills that's needed. So we will make this available online for you to view as well. Thank you very much to all of you that joined us this morning. I know we have another presentation this afternoon, this morning in Welsh, so please feel free to join that one as well if you would like to. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to all the schools. I'm just going to do a quick exit poll for you now, if you wouldn't mind answering a couple more questions. Bear with me whilst we just check that for you. Thank you very much, Nia. We have got an exit poll here, if you wouldn't mind just scrolling through that, and it's just a quick click box. There we go, you should see that on your screens now. So if you wouldn't mind just scrolling through and answering a few of those questions there, we can then send the information through to your schools and also to Horizon from that. Thank you very much for taking part. Okay, great. I'll give you a few moments. I can see people scrolling through and going through the questionnaire. There's only 5 questions. Brilliant. Right. Thank thank you very much. We have come to the end of the webinar now, and as I said, the recording will be made available to you again, and you'll be able to revisit all the information that's been passed on to you today. So thank you all for the really informative information you've passed on to us, and thank you all for joining. I am going to close the event down at the moment and say bye-bye for now, from Careers Wales and also from Horizon.